everyone. Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers, where we are two brothers and we talk about classic video games.
Yes, in fact, we do that on occasion.
On occasion,
every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Live, not live, pre-recorded.
Not live, mostly pre-recorded. I don't think we ever talk on a Sunday. Well, have we ever done it? We're getting weird enough.
All right, this is getting meta.
This is getting too meta. Maybe we'll do a podcast about a podcast one day.
About a podcast.
Well, as part of the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's part of this, of course.
Yeah, I wouldn't make another podcast about another podcast. That would be a little too in podcast inception.
Yeah.
But,
anyway,
yeah.
So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we are the Classic Gaming Brothers. We talk about classic video games, and Seth and I happen to be brothers, and that's pretty much our go-to. So Seth,
yep.
Starting us out, what games have you been playing recently?
So for recently, I've actually gotten back into Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Oh.
Not to be confused with Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, or Star Wars: Jedi Fallen Order. I guess there's a lot of Star Wars, and then some manner of Jedi or Knight, and then something in regards to an Order or Republic.
Yes.
I guess that's their naming nomenclature. So Star Wars: The Old Republic is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, and has a pretty good story for an MMO, and you can play it with your friends because it's an MMO. And me and my buddy have been going through as Sith characters.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm playing a Sith Juggernaut, and he's playing a Sith sorcerer, and we're kind of like evil thugs. And it's kind of funny because we get to see each other do our own movies and interact in the same movie. So it actually does like a rolling system to determine who answers somebody if you're in the same quest.
Oh, cool.
And you can actually garner light or dark side points even though the winning roll might be like the opposite view. Because you thought that you wanted to do a light side option, that's what you get. You get light side points.
Oh.
So the other person doesn't force you to go down this particular path.
Oh.
It's fun. It's actually it's a free to play MMORPG. I've paid for it in the past, and I bought it originally when it came out for the full retail of the game. So I'm what's known as a preferred free-to-play subscriber or person. So I don't get all the benefits of being a subscriber, but I get more than if you wanted to download it for free and play with us.
Oh, okay.
I have a little bit more than that, but less than if I decide to subscribe up. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's kind of because it has a good story, it keeps me engaged, but also has some like mindless MMOing type of things that make it so sometimes you just need that in a game.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons I liked like Star Trek Online, was because while there is some story, a lot of the mindless MMO stuff that you could do was more entertaining to me.
Yeah, I actually never really got into Star Trek Online.
I liked it before. It went through a massive update where they changed a lot of the gameplay stuff, and it was a lot more fun.
I heard about that, yeah.
It was a lot more fun in the old days.
And you controlled your ship and you also did away missions, right?
Yes.
I think I actually did. I think I made a character in it, and I don't know if I got much farther. Oh, I think I went on away mission, and that's, I think, the extent of me playing Star Trek Online. I think I made Red Shirt.
Oh, fun.
Which is command tracked.
Yes.
It's not necessarily
yes.
Yeah, because that's who I am. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not a Red Shirt. I'm just saying I make like commanding type characters in MMOs, I guess. I don't know.
Well, anyway.
What have you been playing recently?
Well, I've been playing. I just finished Sonic Forces, which is a Sonic the Hedgehog game that came out fairly recently. It was actually part of the recent anniversary release of games that they did to kind of ring in Sonic's, I think, 20th birthday or 20th anniversary. Yeah. Sonic Forces is a 3D platformer that you play as the current version of Sonic, as he's called in Sonic canon, modern Sonic, and you also play as he's referred to as classic Sonic, who's designed like the old Sega Genesis Sonic, and then you can also make a custom character who has a couple different moves and stuff. It's okay.
This game is $40.
So I bought it when it was on sale.
Okay.
It was $10 when I got it. And it was for the 25th anniversary. I'm sorry, I said 20th. Sonic's older than 20.
And it came out in 17, it looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, it's currently going for about $40 right now. I got it when it was on sale for PS4. It was 10. Whether or not I think it deserved the money is a different question, but I enjoyed it as a Sonic fan. It was fun to play through. It just wasn't the best of the Sonic games that have been released recently, especially considering the vastly superior Sonic Mania came out.
Sonic Mania is good.
Like a year earlier. So, and that was so much better. So
Sonic Mania is in fact $20 cheaper, and instead of having mixed reviews, has overwhelmingly positive reviews.
Yes, yeah. Sonic Mania, which is a fun throwback to classic Sega Genesis Sonic the Hedgehog, created by a fan, Christian Whitehead, who used to do Sonic hacks of the old games online and stuff like that. So I mean, Sonic Forces, as a Sonic fan, you might have fun with it, but I wouldn't recommend it if you are not a Sonic fan.
But Sonic is a excellent segue to our meat of our podcast this episode. We mentioned in the last podcast we had some listener mail. So we received a mail from one of our listeners, Michael, and he mentioned that his favorite part of our podcast is he loves our podcast, but he likes old console games. He's kind of an old console gamer. So we decided we actually haven't really talked about console games this entire podcast, and we are 7 episodes in, which is a lot to go for without really talking about in-depth console reviews, as it were. So we're going to do things backwards, though, where normally people who talk about console games would talk about Nintendo first.
Right.
We grew up on Sega Genesis,
That's
so
right.
we're going to talk about Sega first.
Or for our European listeners out there, which we do know you exist, you might know it as the Sega Megadrive. I mean, Seth, you had the Sega Genesis before I did, because I wasn't born yet.
No, were you not? I don't know. How old was I when I was playing that Sega? Like I said, in the first episode, the first game that I've played, it was Rocket Knight. And that was at somebody else's house. Rocket Knight is a game about a mouse dressed up in armor, and you have to go through and you have to fight these creatures. I think they're pigs or something.
Yeah, they're pigs. They're like medieval-looking pigs, and they have they have like tanks and mechs and stuff.
Yes, and it is was originally released in 1993 in Japan, and North America release was same year, 1993. So it's a side-scrolling platform which runs linear levels, and you're able to jump and attack with his name is Sparkster. Is his name. And you can attack with a sword, and you either shoot the energy forward with the sword, or you can charge up your rocket pack, because you're a Rocket Knight, and you have you're essentially a mouse in a medieval armor with a rocket pack, and you can charge up your rocket pack and charge forward, hitting people as well.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Go ahead.
The whole balance of kind of platforming with using the rocket versus kind of traditional platforming, I think is really nice change of pace from other types of games in that era.
In fact, it was solely released on the Sega Genesis. It was developed. They actually made an SNES game, but it never got released. And he is actually not a rat. He is. I'm looking at the article about Rocket Knights right here. He's a possum.
Yes. And there was a Sparkster game on the SNES. So there was Rocket Knight 2, which is just called Sparkster. There was a
Yes.
Sega version which was released, which isn't Rocket Knight Adventures. The Sega version
Yes.
kind of plays a little differently than the first game. And then there was a Sparkster release for the SNES, which plays actually more like the first game.
Yes. And so Sparkster, who is the Rocket Knight, stands out. It's essentially when there was a lot of animal mascots. So like there was Sparkster, there was Sonic, who was a hedgehog. There was all the cereals had animals like Tony the Tiger and all that. It was just like pure 90s animals everywhere, personified, representing brands.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rocket Knight was the first game that I ever saw and played, to my memory. They actually did redo the game, and was re-released a revival of the game in 2010.
Yeah.
Which you can buy on all manners of different consoles and on PC.
Yeah. And I think for me, probably my first Sega game was Sonic 2. If not another game that I just don't remember, but the first Sega game I remember playing was Sonic 2. Which is a great game. It's the follow up to the first Sonic game, as the name implies. And I talked about it in an earlier episode because it was one of my games that I had just played. So I won't go too much into Sonic 2, but it's a fun, fast paced adventure game, as all the Sonic games are.
I would say they're action games and they're linear platformers.
Yes, yeah. They're more. They're
call them an adventure.
No, they're an adventure in their own right.
Except I think the only story in them is that you got to go fast and you got to get to the end.
Isn't that an adventure in itself?
Yes. So we actually went through some. To prepare for this episode, we went through and looked at some different games that we thought about, we remember playing, and that we wanted to do a little more to let you guys know about what we thought about them at the time, and kind of like the different spread of games that we had on the Genesis or remember playing, and there's some interesting games here. We definitely tried to err on the side of hidden gems, as they were.
Yeah, I think so.
Perhaps not necessarily a game that was super popular at the time or ever. But, so I'll start with the first game that I actually wrote down was a game called Shining Force, and there was Shining Force and Shining Force 2. Both of them were on the Sega Genesis. I actually watched a family friend, a guy by the name of Dan, play this game on the Sega when I was a child, and it was cool. It was very much a tactical fantasy RPG.
Yeah.
Akin to like Final Fantasy,
more to like Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I think Shining Force was more of Sega's response to the Fire Emblem franchise, which was kind of getting its kicks up over in Japan.
That's true. I meant like the combat was very. I guess it's very traditional Japanese style.
Yeah, it is
RPG combat, which Final Fantasy shares it, and very much is it's accurate. Right? It's more like Fire Emblem, which so there you essentially build up an army ish. You get different units. The battles take place on like square grids, and you move your units around similarly to like a game of like chess to a point.
Yeah.
And then when you interact with each of the enemies, you have to go into a battle sequence where you have to fight them.
Yes.
And you may be able to attack from different type of characters to fight different types of enemies. and essentially the goal of every battle was to just kill everybody, and make it to the other side. So then the story, you wouldn't be able to. You could just keep retrying every battle, since it was a cartridge based game and there wasn't really extensivity for. You could save those 3 save slots, but it definitely allowed you to restart it. So the game didn't just end because you died, but you could restart and try again. It was a good game. I definitely had an interesting story. And it was fun. Originally released in 1993 as well.
Yeah, and I seem to remember. I think the second game did it have some like future elements. I thought I remember like a mech character really late in the game.
Maybe I remember there was a jellyfish. That's what I remember.
Okay,
It was like a jellyfish that would freeze you. I remember there was like a centaur type creature.
Yeah.
Your main character was just like a classic dude with a knife,
like a bandana,
or a sword,
yeah.
and a bandana. So yeah, it was. I don't know about a mech character. Maybe sometimes these games kind of blend together, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the games that I was definitely remembering as kind of a hidden gem was and there's kind of 2 ways I guess you could pronounce it. I've heard it both ways, but Ristar, Ristar, which was released in 95. It's also said as a restar. I've heard that a couple of times. I don't know which is correct. It's not a real word. So Ristar it's a 2D platformer created by actually some of the team behind Sonic the Hedgehog. And you play as a star person, I think is the best way to describe him. He looks
like a star with like legs and arms.
Yeah, he looks like a star, like what a kid would draw, with like Sonic the Hedgehog lightning bolt legs and like arms.
He's definitely gloves. Like a star. Yeah, but he's got like a back that implies that he's like wearing like a star mask.
Yeah, it's very strange. So
it's weird.
So Rice
kind of reminds me of those the raisins from the California raisins.
It does. It's like a California raisin put on a like a sun mask,
a star mask. Yeah, exactly.
So Ristar, as all stars do, he has the power to shoot around to different planets. He can also stretch his hands, which I'm pretty sure most stars can do. And he uses his stretching arms and hands to do headbutts to defeat his enemies. So you don't like jump on enemies as you would in like Mario or Sonic. You have to grab them with your stretchy star arms and headbutt them. So it's kind of a unique way of platforming around. You use that to also climb things. From my memory of the game and from what I'm reading about, Ristar is like, he doesn't actually describe who he is. I think he's like a god, because you get waken up by these like people who are worshiping you, and then you go and you fight a bad guy. And that's the game.
Yeah, I don't think they really. There was you knew you were playing a game. I don't think you really needed any more context than that,
no,
right?
Not at all.
You were playing a console system, so you knew you were sitting down for a game. You look at the cover art. The cover art looks pretty fun. You see the different game mechanics, and there you go.
Yeah, and
I think Ristar was more about the game mechanics of like crawling through the level versus
exactly.
Story of whatever you were doing.
I mean the story was definitely a second thought, but there's some unique elements to Ristar in the sense that, like I said, you use the kind of your grabbing hands to get enemies, but you can also use it to swing around on these like handle things that will kind of project you like a shooting star through the level. You also have to collect different power-ups and collectibles to earn higher scores, and the levels are all very unique, kind of in the same vein as Sonic the Hedgehog. They're all like themed levels, so you have the jungle level, you have the fire level, the ice level, there's a music level where all the things you walk on make different noises and music stuff. And the music also itself is just very, very classic Sega Genesis, very heavy synth sounding music. So that's definitely I would consider that a hidden gem. What about any other hidden gems you can think of?
Well, I don't know if this is a hidden gem, but since it was a commercial success, but but there's a series of games that are called the Strike series.
Yeah.
They start with Desert Strike, then there's Jungle Strike, Urban Strike, Soviet Strike, and Nuclear Strike.
It escalates from there.
Nuclear Strike, yeah, Soviet Strike and Nuclear Strike are on the PlayStation. Desert Strike, Urban Strike, and Desert Strike, or did I say Desert already?
Yeah,
Desert, Urban, and Jungle Strike, all are on the Megadrive, the Sega Genesis. So what these games take place, they were on multiple platforms as well. We played them on the Sega Genesis. And you essentially piloted a helicopter and fought against bad people.
Yeah.
They're like insane dictators or terrorists. The first game was released in 92, the next one came out in 94, and then 93 and then 94. So Desert Strike came out in 92, Jungle Strike came out in 93, and Urban Strike came out in 94. We owned Jungle Strike first,
yes,
which was the sequel to Desert Strike, and then we got Desert Strike later. And it involved you flying across this flat map and navigating as this helicopter. You had objectives, and you could you fly around shooting missiles or machine guns at bad people and picking up survivors with ladders or moving munitions or something with your crane and carrying it around.
Yeah.
In the Jungle Strike, it introduced being able to take other vehicles. You could like get a motorbike or a hovercraft.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You switch into a different or a stealth bomber or something like that.
I think there's also like a heavy. I think there was like a heavy helicopter you could also pick up at one point that was used for like transporting like vehicles or something.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely a. I remember playing Jungle Strike especially because it was just a fun game. I mean, it was like you had to fly around, blow stuff up.
We were children, so we didn't really understand. Apparently, there was controversy with Desert Strike because it was returning to the Gulf, and it was 92, so the Gulf War wasn't that long over.
Right, yeah.
So there was controversy about having a game taking place in a war that ended in 91.
Yeah, I guess I could see a bit about where that might be a little controversial.
But it scored very well, and it was a very action strategy kind of type game, beyond more than just the Twitch gaming around that was happening with platformers and like fighting games.
Yeah, it's a unique game. You know, it's not like I wouldn't consider it like a flight simulator. It's more of just a kind of a quick game of doing objective to objective sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, going along the lines of simulators and strategy and stuff like that. One game that I didn't grow up with, but I definitely I got into more recently was Dune: Battle for Arrakis, which is a real-time strategy game for the Sega Genesis, which I think is incredibly unique. Usually when people think of real-time strategy games, they think of PC games such as Warcraft or Dune, which was made by Westwood Studios. And this is Westwood's port of the second game that they released, or of the Dune 2 game that they released. And it is a real-time strategy game on the Sega Genesis. It plays very much similar to how the PC game played, except with some more simplified control schemes. You don't really have options for hotkeys or anything like that. Everything's done through the 3-button or 6-button controller.
Right.
But it's unique, and I think it's kind of cool that Westwood took the chance and ported the game over to the Genesis.
I was surprised. I played that game on the PC, and it was a good RTS, which is a real time strategy game. I think my favorite part of that game was that when you would move units across the desert, occasionally sandworms would erupt from the ground and
Yes,
just
yeah,
eat everything.
yeah.
Because this is Dune, not Doom.
Right.
It's
Yes. Yes.
Dune,
Dune.
not
Yeah.
DOM. But yeah, so that is it's definitely an interesting port for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
yeah, I think it's cool that I didn't know there was any real time strategy games, especially Dune, for the Sega Genesis until I stumbled
for the
across
Sega
it.
Genesis,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I picked it up and I've been enjoying it.
For a game that came out, also I feel it looks like 94. 93, 94 was kind of like the heyday of all the games that I
Mm.
really enjoyed playing, I guess. There was a fighting game called Clay Fighters
Yes. Yeah. Clay
that came
Fighters.
out. Clay Fighters, the main character that you it's a fighting game, so it's like one-on-one Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, except it's a circus theme and it was all like humor driven,
Yes.
and there was like claymation style graphics, and they actually digitized and photographed actual clay models to then render the game then rendered them in the game, and that's how they made the games. It was published by Interplay and was I think developed by a company called Visual Concepts, and they're best known for making sport games in the 2K franchise.
Yeah.
Also, Clay Fighters.
Also Clay Fighter.
The main character the main character, the guy on the cover is Bad Mr. Frosty, who's a
Yes.
snowman with a bad attitude who throws snowballs and gestures and states, "I'm bad, I'm cool, I'm no one's fool." There's also like a blob of clay, Blue Suede Goo, who is a Elvis impersonator with wildly exaggerated features, Bonker, a cheerfully manic clown, Ichabod Clay, a ghost with a pumpkin head. So there's all these different characters, and they were very much. There's, in fact, the final boss was a creature called N Boss, which was a joke at the character from Street Fighter 2,
M.
M.
Bison.
Bison, and the frayed
Ah.
End Boss. And
Clever.
yes, so he would just copy other whatever attacks you did to him. But yeah, so that was that was a fun fighting game. It was just it was good little mindless type of game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like one of the only fighting games. I mean, I remember we also owned Street Fighter, but I think that was like the real fighting game that I remember playing and enjoying.
Right.
Just because
Yeah,
it didn't take
Clay
itself
Fighters was
seriously.
good.
Um, one game that I always remember when I think of Sega Genesis, I think it's one of the ones that I feel like not a lot of people remember is Vector Man in Vector Man 2.
Yes.
So Vector Man and Vector Man 2 were two platformer, kind of like shooty platforming games. You played as this guy whose name was, I assume, Vector Man, because they don't give any other name.
Yeah, he's a robot.
Yeah, he's a robot. He's the Vector Man robot. And Vector Man is cool. He's made of like circles that give him very fluid animation. It used pre-rendered 3D models for the characters and for the characters in the game and the level design, which was kind of a new concept around that time. Other companies were doing it, such as Donkey Kong Country and such. Another cool thing about it was that the fact that the platforming itself was a lot of fun. You kind of explored these massive levels, and you had to fight all these different creatures. A lot of them were bugs. In the second game, it's I think mostly bugs that you're fighting, and you kill like a queen of the bugs at the end. Very kind of aliens esque. and you get to play. And Vector Man himself is a trash man, which is always a fun thing. He's a trash collector.
Oh, that's right. He's a trash collector. He is a robot trash collector who's killing bugs. I'm guessing just to clean up things.
I think it's just. I think the plot, at least of the second game, is that you are doing your job and then your ship crashes. So then you have to.
That's right.
Just kind of figure that out.
Fight your way out.
Yeah. There was supposed to be a follow-up to the Vector Man series, a 3D version of Vector Man that was supposed to come out for the PlayStation 2, I think, but it was sadly canceled, and we haven't seen Vector Man since the good old year of 1996 was when the second game came out.
Yes. I actually, whenever I think of Vector Man, I actually think of another game that we didn't write down, but I'm just remembering.
Yeah.
Toxic Crusaders.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It was based. So what's funny is the game came out in '92. We owned it, and from all my knowledge, we had never seen any of the source material.
No. Which I think, to be honest, maybe the TV show, but our parents would definitely not let us watch the movies.
Yes. To this day, I have not seen the movie that the TV show was, or the game was based on, which was the Toxic Avenger. So the Toxic Avenger was there's a film. There's also apparently a musical production.
Yep.
And then there is the children's animated series based on the Toxic Crusaders, which then they made a video game on Toxic Crusaders on the video game. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up kind of platform game where you're like going through, kind of similar to almost like the X-Men arcade game almost, kind of like where there's like enemies coming at you and you gotta just beat them up, and there may be like some things you have to jump around on, and you play as it was co-op, and I don't know, maybe it was only one player. I don't know. I thought it was co-op.
No, I'm pretty sure it is co-op.
Well, according to the Wikipedia, it's one player, unless it was always fake co-op.
It might have been fake co-op.
Which is when I gave the control to my brother and continued to play the game. But I thought there was... but you play as this like green guy with a mop, and which is why you're saying Garbage Man, so that's why I guess
you play as Toxie.
Yeah, Toxie. And you go through and you have this like little pink guy that rides on you. It is very much late 80s, early 90s type situation going on.
Like this was the time period when like TV shows like Captain Planet and like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were on, but also the Rambo television show. So fun fact about the TV show, at least it was developed by Chuck Lorre, who went on to create The Big Bang Theory.
Well, yeah, there you go.
So
there was going to be a Super Nintendo version. There was an NES version, a Genesis version, and a Game Boy version. But the Super Nintendo version was canceled.
Yeah, I loved that game for the Genesis. It was weird, but
it was very weird. There was two playable characters. There was Toxie, and then there was this blue guy that had a peg leg.
Yeah.
And
there's the dog.
A skateboard. There was a dog, but I think that went with Toxie. I don't know.
No, there was like a walking dog guy who was like a life-size dog, and he licked when you killed monsters.
Oh yeah,
they dissolved,
that's
and
right.
Then he would lick them off the ground.
That's right. There was definitely. I feel like there was definitely multiplayer in this game. You could also ride a helicopter, but not like Desert Strike. It was a very strange helicopter. Look it up if you want to check it out on it's Moby Games. It has some screenshots. If you go to Moby Games and search Toxic Crusaders, you go to Wikipedia and see the cover art. It is interesting. Yes. I actually think I am very much inspired to watch Toxic Avenger.
I don't know if you would like it. It is very gory. I'm just gonna say that.
Well, all right, that's fine. As gory as like on a scale of like Oz gory or.
I mean, it's like 1970s, 80s schlock gore where like people's heads explode.
Okay.
So
well, maybe I'll watch the cartoon.
Yeah, at least watch the cartoon.
Play the power up the game. That's a blast from that.
Kind of going in line with an adaptation, X-Men 2. Also known as X-Men 2: The Clone Wars, unrelated to the Star Wars of the same name, wasn't a game that I really liked playing. I think this was another situation like Jungle Strike and like actually Vector Man. We had Vector Man 2.
Vector Man 2.
We had Jungle Strike, which is the sequel to Desert Strike, and then we had X-Men 2: Clone Wars, and we didn't get the first games until later. So
yeah.
Actually, the same with Sonic. We had Sonic 2, but we didn't have Sonic 1 until later.
Yeah, so, I feel like they just got whatever game was out.
Yeah, which was the sequels. So
I remember we eventually picked up, or I played Spider-Man X-Men's Arcade.
Yes,
Revenge.
I think we did pick that up. I remember playing that. That was not as good as X-Men 2: Clone Wars.
No, X-Men 2: Clone Wars was an amazing game.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. You play as so the coolest thing actually about the game to me, and a thing I don't want to forget to say, is that the game starts with a cold open, which was the first time I had ever seen that in a video game, or probably at all. Like, you don't get the Sega logo, you don't get the like titles card, you don't get the like produced by logos, you get the first level of the game, and then after you beat that level you get the Sega logo and you get the title card. And I thought that was really cool, especially for a Sega game. It was also very easy to test the game out, because if you put it into your cartridge and you didn't hear the music starting up, it meant the game was not working, so you had to pull it out and put it back in again.
Yes. And in fact, it was a very cold because you started out in the snow.
Yes, it was like Serbia or something like that. I think
you're like trying to get into like a
Sentinel base.
Sentinel facility. That's right, a Sentinel facility. You also didn't get to choose your character that you started with in the cold opening. It generated you randomly, and then when the next person joined the game, they just spawned in randomly too. And it got to the point where I remember restarting the game until I got the character I wanted to play, because I wanted to play as like Nightcrawler, and I kept getting Cyclops.
Yes.
That's what happens when you want Nightcrawler.
What was cool about though X-Men 2 is that, unlike other X-Men games that were out around that time, like actually the first X-Men game for the Sega, your mutant abilities are not like, they don't really have like a limit to them. Essentially how it happens is that your mutant abilities are dependent on your health levels. So the more health you have, the stronger the ability is. The less health you have, the lighter the ability is. But the ability is always there. It never runs out. It's not like a finite thing like in the first X-Men game for the Sega. And I think that's really cool, because I mean, that's kind of like what mutants should be like. They shouldn't run out of, like, Wolverine shouldn't run out of claw, which happens in the first X-Men game on the Sega. He runs out of claw. So if
you had superpowered health, you would be able to get secret powers.
Yeah, if you had like superpowered health, you get like mega powers. Like Wolverine would go into like berserker mode, and I think Nightcrawler would do this thing where he would like teleport all around the screen and it would wipe out enemies.
Yes.
It was very cool. And another cool thing was you got to play as Magneto later in the game. Spoiler alert. Which was a really cool thing for us 90s kids to be able to play as the bad guy for once.
And interesting, the game, the players began the game with 8 lives, meaning the 1 plus 8 that was shared between all the characters.
Yes.
And no other way to get more lives. So you had to be able to beat the game with 9 attempts.
It was
between 2 people. So if somebody died, you were mad at them.
Yes, it was one of those games that really tested your relationships and your family with each other.
Apparently, they were working on a sequel called X-Woman for the game. But it was supposed to come out in '97, and it was canceled, unfortunately.
Bummer. But that's one of those games that I definitely will go back. I'll probably play this week.
On the Sega?
On the Sega that I'm sitting in my room.
Perfect. So, I think we do have we're going to come back to the Genesis.
Oh,
we're
going
to take
we're
going to take we're going to take a brief pause and go talk about Nintendo in the next episode. But we will come back to more Sega Genesis talk and console talk, because as you could see, there is a pile of games that we played that maybe you didn't know about and that you would like. But let's wrap things up with the Byway Pass segment and move it on with our lives. Did you go? I went first, or how does this work?
I don't remember. You can go first this time.
Really? All right.
Or I can go first.
I think I just got. I want to find where I was with the. There was a Hold on.
Okay.
There was a game. You could go first.
Okay, I will go first.
Go first. I have to find the game that I want to talk about.
No worries. So the game that I'm actually excited for just had its trailer. It just had its trailer released like a few weeks ago. I think that's the Resident Evil 3 remake. So last week I talked about the Final Fantasy 7 remake that I'm excited for. This week, I'm excited for another remake, which is the Resident Evil 3 remake.
So you're just excited for remakes?
Yes, well, especially this one. Capcom recently, within the last year, did the Resident Evil 2 remake for the PlayStation 4, which was a fantastic reimagining remake of the second Resident Evil game for the PlayStation 1.
They did 0, 2, or Biohazard? What is it?
Yeah, so they also did Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Is it Resident Evil 7? I had a Resident Evil on my wish list, I think, where it was the 0 one.
Oh, yeah, there's Resident Evil 0. There's Resident Evil 4 and 5.
Yeah, Resident Evil 0 dash Biohazard HD remaster.
Yes. So Biohazard is the name in Japan, for those who might not know.
I gotcha.
Which they did something funny with the 7th game, but that's just they titled it Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and in Japan it's Biohazard 7 Resident Evil. As a kind of a clever gag. So anyway, yeah, so they recently released Resident Evil 2. The remake of the second game is more of a reimagining. They changes up a lot of the gameplay mechanics, and the obviously the graphics are completely redone from scratch. It's not like an HD remaster; it's a full remake of the game. And they announced that they're doing that for Resident Evil 3, which is a great game for the PlayStation 1, and I'm excited to try it out. I'm on the edge of buy and wait because I actually haven't finished the Resident Evil 2 remake. I just finished the first half of the game, but you play the game again as a different character. You do one half as the character Leon, and then once you beat Leon's mission, you do it as Jill Valentine. So I'm in the Jill Valentine.
Kind of like Blue Shift.
Yes, kind of. Except with more of a big scary man who chases you the entire time, named Mr.
Gordon
X.
Freeman's kind of big and scary.
Gordon Freeman is kind of big and scary. Anyway, I'm probably going to be a wait at least on Resident Evil 3 until I spend some time and finish Resident Evil 2, which I have a massive backlog of games, so who knows when I'll get back to that. So what about you, Seth?
I'm looking forward to a game that will be out by the time this podcast comes out, but is not out currently. So it's one of those weird timey-wimey podcasts. So maybe I'll even try to, if the game is cheap enough, maybe I'll try and get it, and then I can talk about it in our recently played segment only weeks after this podcast.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
So that'll be fun. It's a game called The White Door.
Oh, okay. I've heard of the White Door.
It's you have to. You're essentially a man in a checked into a some type of like mental health facility.
Yeah.
And you have memory issues, and you have like this very strict routine, and you have to play up the routine, and it's all black and white, and the black and white, it plays out like almost cartoony type of graphics, and then you have to go through his dreams and try and find memories. And as you go through the dreams, you add like color back into his life.
Oh, cool.
And so you're trying to kind of remember. So then like maybe the orange juice it's orange juice in the morning instead of just like a clear liquid. And you try to kind of piece together your life going through his dreams, and based on just reading about it, it kind of looks cool. Point and click adventure, so of course it's up my alley.
Yeah.
As evident by listening to this podcast, I talk about point and click adventures a lot. So I'll try it out. So I'll put it down as a buy, because you know what? I'll buy it for the podcast and play it and try to get some context back and follow back up on our do a complete circle.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
So with that, that's we're gonna wrap up here.
Yeah.
So remember, don't play games like my brother.
Wait a second.
Wait. Oh wait, we should talk about our Fate
us?
Fizz. Yes. Darn, so close to
So
getting
close.
out of here.
So
I'm trapped in this room with Zach. So we're on Facebook and Instagram, Classic Gaming Brothers. We're also on Twitter, CGB Brothers Pod, and also you may find us at our email, which is classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. We recommend you subscribe, you follow. Also, tell your friends, because sometimes the best recommendation comes from somebody saying, have you listened to this podcast? Are you bored at work? Or are you bored on your commute? And do you need to hear a solid 45 minutes of two brothers talking about video games? Because if you have that need, we're here to fill that need.
That's
it
why
may
we're
be
here.
it's a very niche need, I guess.
It is.
It's a very, very niche need.
If you want to hear us just go on about nothing,
then... well, we talk about video games. We're the premier eminent scholars on video games.
Absolutely.
It's going to be archived for.
It's going to be in the National Archives.
The National Archives, and right next to some one of those. What is that? The NPR.
Like
recordings.
It'll be like next to like Ira Glass and Garrison Keillor's voices. Us.
Just us, yeah.
Just us.
That's right, NPR. If you're still looking for a segment, we're available on Saturdays.
That's right. WGBH, I am down the street from you.
Anyway, once again, speaking of which, before I lose this, that is in case everybody's wondering why we sign off with "Don't play games like my brother." It is a homage to the Car Talk guys.
Yes, yeah. Click and Clack, the Tapper brothers.
In case people thought all of a sudden we hate each other, we don't. We mildly tolerate each other. But anyway.
I mean, we're doing a podcast together. We might like each other.
we are doing a podcast. I may or may not be locked in this room. So, anyway, like always, don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach. And Seth is trapped in here with me.
No! Send help.